Hi everyone. Do you ever feel like everyone knows when to pull out their summer plants and start their fall garden and you always miss the window? Let's fix that. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly when to pull out your tired summer crops and swap out fall veggies without wasting a single inch of space and in time to get a harvest before winter hits. And you'll also learn my fall planting shuffle that allows me to get 2 harvests from the same bed. We'll cover 3 signs that'll tell you instantly if a plant's worth keeping or pulling, how to stop pests and diseases from following you into fall, the soil prep step that most gardeners skip that help your fall crops take off instantly. I garden year-round here in Southern California, but these tips work no matter where you're at, whether you're still in triple digits or racing your first frost date. And I have a 3-second visual check that will change how you look at your plants forever. And once you know this, you'll never second guess a pull or keep your plant decision again. The first sign whether you should pull a plant or keep it in is what I call the harvest slowdown test. Are your harvests coming in slower than they were in the beginning of the season? For example, this tomato plant. We harvested some great tomatoes off it. There's still a few left that we're protecting from the rats, but it's definitely slowing down. So if your harvests are coming in fewer or much smaller and just kind of not so great looking, that's a sign it's time to pull. And if the leaves are kind of just generally looking pale, crispy, curled, just overall not a healthy plant, it's definitely time to pull it. Now here's that 3-second plant check I was telling you about that'll help you decide whether to pull or keep a plant. Look at the growth tip. For example, on this plant here, the growth tip is kind of curled and shriveled. Look at these leaves here. The flowers are just kind of drying up. There's no new growth coming out, which tells me that production is on its way out and it's going to be time to pull this plant either now or very soon. However, if the tip is lush and green and you're seeing new growth, it's still in the game. And as part of your 3-second check too, also check the lower leaves. If they're dying off faster and you're not seeing a lot of new growth, it's definitely time to pull that plant. Little pro gardener shortcut. Take a picture now and then again in 7 days. And if there's no noticeable new growth, it goes. But even green tips won't save a plant if pests and disease have moved in. That's up next. Sign number 2 that it's time to pull a plant is when the pests and disease are winning. Some issues you can manage, but when they're overtaking the plant, it's time to pull them so they don't affect your fall crops or your current crops that are doing well. So a good rule of thumb is to look and see if 50% of the leaves are affected. So here in my scarlet runner bean plant, the Japanese beetles have been coming in, unfortunately, and a lot of the leaves are skeletonized, kind of crispy, just not looking great. So it's definitely time to pull out these runner beans so I can open up some space for fall crops and so the pests and disease don't spread to other crops in the area. Now, some disease issues and signs to look out for are plants that completely and suddenly wilt all at once. Like my watermelon here. I was really hoping for a nice crop of watermelon, but all of a sudden they just wilted and died, which is the sign of a disease that is not going to be able to be remedied by one of the Monterey sprays. So this plant definitely needs to come out so that we can open up room for fall plants and other plants around it don't get diseased too. Another disease red flag to look out for is spotted or yellowing leaves. See these leaves on this plant? It has slowly spread from the bottom all the way through the plant, and there's absolutely no way this entire plant is going to recover. So as soon as we harvest these watermelon later this week, this plant's going to be pulled to make room for fall crops. And when it comes to pests, a good clean slate protocol that I like to stick to is as soon as I see a few aphids and a few ants, which actually bring in the aphids, I'm going to spray with Monterey Takedown, which kills them on contact. And that way I can keep my plant in the garden longer without having to pull it out. Bonus tip here, 2 plants I never pull, even if they're dead or diseased, are kale and chard. This chard actually has quite a bit of powdery mildew on the leaves here. But chard will come back. So all I do when I see a plant like this is I just cut the leaves at the base of the plant and it will come back and grow fresh new growth so you can get 2 harvests or 3 or 4 harvests from the same plant. And many kale and chard plants I've kept in like this for several years and had multiple harvests for many years from the same plant. This kale plant I just cut back a few weeks ago and it's already got big, beautiful new green growth about 3 weeks later. Sign number 3 that you need to pull a plant out of your garden when it just plain and simple looks dead. It's a dead weight plant like this cucumber here. The leaves are crispy and dry. They look sunburnt. There's yellowing leaves on it, it's drooping, it's just not gonna come back. Maybe the base of the plant is cracked and splitting. In this case, it's definitely time to pull it. It's just not pulling its weight in the garden. Taking up valuable real estate that you can use for your fall garden. So we're gonna yank this out. You can cut it out at the base and get rid of it. And the payoff is removing it frees up space, resources, and nutrients that you can use for your fall garden. Now you know 3 signs of when to pull your crops or when to leave them. But as you pull them, let's talk about the fall crop swap. So as you're pulling those plants, whether you're clearing your entire garden bed or just pulling out 1 or 2 plants at a time, you've got to amend the soil. Your garden soil is tired out from growing the summer vegetables. And if you don't amend it with fresh nutrients, your fall crops are just not going to do well. So if you're clearing out a whole garden bed, refresh it with some compost, some soil amendment. I use bumper crop, soil builder, or potting mix to refresh my containers. Or you can just add a handful or 2 of the tomato and veg fertilizer and your soil amendments right in the spot where you pulled the plants out. Here's that soil prep tip that most gardeners skip. When you're clearing an entire garden bed after you've added your amendments, don't just plant right away. Moisten and water your garden bed well for at least 2 to 3 days. This allows the moisture to really sink into the soil, really activates the amendments that you just added, and it allows your seedlings to germinate faster once they are planted because they have the moisture that they need to get off to a really good start right away. Now here's my fall garden bed shovel, my secret weapon for getting 2 or even 3 harvests out of 1 garden bed. I've got a squash plant here. The harvests are starting to slow down. It's starting to get taken over by powdery mildew, so it has 2 of the 3 signs for pulling a plant. What I do in this case is I planted a fresh squash right next to it. It's growing strong. When this squash plant comes out, the new squash plant will be right here in place, so I get fresh harvest out of that. That's harvest number 1. So for fall, I like to plant quick growing crops in the shade of taller plants. That's harvest number 2. So underneath here, I have some arugula, some scarlet frills mustard greens, which are nice cool weather vegetables, which will be partially shaded by the crops here, and I'll get harvest number 2. And I've also direct sowed some heat tolerant greens over in this garden bed here, and these are quick growing greens like Florida broadleaf mustard greens from a heat tolerant green seed collection. I actually thickly sowed them like microgreens, and then after they get a few inches tall, I can probably do this even this week, I'll snip them out about every 2 inches apart. It will allow the space for the rest of the greens to grow to adult size, and that is harvest number 3. So not only are we going to plant our cool weather greens, our heat tolerant greens, and even some root vegetables that grow fast like radishes that you can harvest in weeks, not months, but we're also going to start some of our slower growing crops indoors under grow lights because it's too hot for them outside right now. We've got some broccoli, cauliflower, cabbage, and Brussels sprouts, and also a whole bunch of other greens, so that we have transplants ready to put out in the garden as soon as the weather cools down to under 75 degrees. But we can cheat it just a little bit too by transplanting some of these crops like Brussels sprouts and cabbage in our garden beds as we pull other crops out. So I'm going to tuck some of my Long Island Brussels sprouts in the shade of this cucumber plant here, which is perfect because since they're a tall plant, they're going to need the support of the trellis as they grow. The cucumber plants will be ready to pull in a month to 6 weeks. We'll shade the Long Island Brussels sprouts until the weather is cool, and then they'll really start to take off. I'm going to tuck in some of my Michelini cabbage from my fall garden seed collection over in this garden bed. So that's actually 4 harvests now with this method, and the big payoff is 0 downtime as summer fades into fall without wasting an inch of garden space. And consistent moisture here is non-negotiable. You've got to have it, especially as the temperatures are shifting from hot to cold. Make sure everything is watered consistently. I use Mr. Landscaper drip irrigation, and here in my garden bed, I've got drip irrigation with inline emitters installed in addition to a micro sprayer, which helps keep my newly planted crops nice and moist. As they're germinating, helps them grow faster. And then, as I don't need enough water, I can simply turn the on-off valve down to adjust my watering schedule. So now you know exactly when to pull out your summer plants and start doing the garden bed shuffle to plant for fall. As always, I look forward to reading your comments. Thanks for watching. See you next time in the garden.